So I live in Cardiff, so we've been actually dealing with this issue from 2015, and we don't actually have a problem, right? So now it's quite a big hoo-ha here, but we've been dealing with this. So when the Human Transplantation Act 2013 became law, on the 1st of December 2015, as well as an academic at Cardiff University, I'm also an imam in one of the mosques. And I had many people contacting me, phoning me, emailing me, coming up to me after the prayer, and they were asking me like theological questions, bizarre theological questions. And that got me thinking that I need to look into this issue more, and therefore I was researching and still researching this topic for the past 3 years. So questions like, I would like to donate my organs, but what will happen if I am resurrected organless on the day of judgment, right? I would like to donate my organs, but what will happen if somebody was to abuse that? For example, if I donate my cornea, and then the recipient then goes and watches pornography with that, would I be a part of that sin? So those are kind of theological questions that people were asking. Today I would just like to, I changed my, this slide that I was doing previously. I thought I'd make it less scholarly and more kind of public centered. So I would like to discuss some of the questions that arise, and Professor Ghazal has also spoken about this, so let's see how we move on. So there are, first of all, a number of myths which are more medical, political. I really don't want to go into this, but these are the kind of questions that, in my experience, people ask. And maybe when we are asking in the question and answer panel, maybe the doctors and the medics here can talk to those theft of organs. Doctors will not treat patients in intensive care in order to hasten their death and procure organs. So I had one elderly lady, she said, I was sick in hospital, and every so often the nurse will come, right? And she will check on me, because she's checking on me whether I get bumped or not, right? And whether I die so she can take my organs. I said, no, I think she's checking on you to see if you're all right or not, right? Transplant doctors and donation team colluding over patient organs. So I would like some of the doctors to talk about the concept of decoupling. I'm not going to go into that. The government has an organ bank where they stash people's organs. So there is this kind of idea in the community that there is a mass conspiracy where the government has this stash, and what they want to do is they want to collect Muslim organs particularly, right, for God knows what reason, and that's why this whole law is coming about. So I would like some of the colleagues here to, I can answer that, but that's more on the political side. Through the new legislation, government intends to own our organs and body. And my own family members have misconception about this. When I started my research, I actually got a barrister, paid a barrister, to read through the entire Human Transplantation Act 2013 with me. There is a misconception that people think, and it happened also in Cardiff by December, 1st of December 2015, if you do not opt out, then that's it. The government owns you now. You can't do anything. And a lot of people think that, no, you can opt out or opt in whenever you want in your life. This is where the law is actually changing. And do you know what? Nothing really is going to change with the law. Okay? Because when somebody hasn't opted out, right, and therefore they deemed consent, and they were to die, the conversation is still going to happen with their family. We are not in UK advocating a hard opt-out where the family is not going to be consulted. We are advocating a soft opt-out where the family will always be consulted. Then you might ask, why on earth are we changing the law, and why is there all this hoo-ha about? One of the reasons why the law is changing is because there are many people who believe in organ donation on principle, but they just didn't opt in because they were busy watching EastEnders. Right? Why would people think about their own mortality? Or whatever reason. These people are falling through the net. It's to capture these people. That's all it is. Because nothing else changes. But anyway, I'll let some of the politicians talk to that. In my 3 years, I have read over 100 of fatwas in Arabic, in Urdu, in English, from all over the world. And I was able to extrapolate from these 100 fatwas more, 6 different positions, from it is haram to donate, and also haram to receive. 2, it is halal to donate and haram to receive, and everything in between. I'm not going to go into this. You can ask me afterwards. What I would like to do is go on to the fatwa number 6, the one that I in my reading have come to the conclusion, because when I started researching this topic, I actually didn't know what the case was. Fatwa number 6 is, it is halal to receive, it's permissible to take, okay, and also permissible to donate. If you look at these positions, you'll say that haram to donate, but halal to receive. Halal to receive, haram to donate. So these positions are advocating that I can take, but I can't give. Yeah? I can take when I need it, but I'm not going to give to anyone. But if people stop giving, then where are you going to get the organs from to take? Okay. This position, fatwa number 6, is the position of some of these people, the Islamic Fiqh Academy of Makkah, Zaki Badawi, the Islamic Council for Fatwa Research, which Dr. Ghazal has written. But in my opinion, if we were to look in the Muslim world, from Indonesia to from Morocco to Jakarta, this is the main opinion. This is the official opinion of the Ministry of Health in Singapore, in Indonesia, in Malaysia. It's only a small group from the scholars from the Indian subcontinent have a problem with organ donation, not receiving organs, by the way. They're all happy to receive organs. Donating organs because of certain socio-political issues. For example, the idea that if you were to give a fatwa that organ donation is permissible, that might lead to black market organ trafficking. And the fatwa that everyone resorts to is the 1967 fatwa written by Mufti Shafi, a very prominent Mufti, who said that it's not permissible to, actually Mufti Shafi says it's not even permissible to receive. I don't know where people get that you're allowed to receive but you're not allowed to take. But think of Mufti Shafi in 1967 in Pakistan, he's giving a fatwa that you're not allowed to donate, right? Pakistan even today, or Bangladesh, does not have a government-backed organ transplantation program. If Mufti Shafi was giving the fatwa back in 1967 that it is permissible to donate an organ, he has just legitimized the demand without a government backing program. Where do you think the supply is going to come from? Black market. So they were wary of that. But do these fatwas still work today? That's why I delivered a paper at Markfield Institute of Higher Education, and my paper was called Transplanting Fatwas. Not transplanting organs, transplanting fatwas. Like, how do we perceive these fatwas? And this is why, just 3 days ago, a new fatwa was released, endorsed by the NHS in the UK by Mufti Muhammad Zubair, but who's a very good friend of mine. And I was behind the scene working with Mufti Muhammad Zubair, and you can see I am interviewing Muhammad Zubair on this, on the NHS website. You can see that. And it's 110-page fatwas. So even the Muslim scholars who are kicking off and having a hoo-ha, they haven't had the time to read the 110-page fatwa. So I'm not going to go into all of this. This basically just says that it's permissible to give and take. Yeah? Organ donation from the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever saves the life saves all of humanity. Now I would like to mention that there is nothing in the Quran or in the precedent of the Prophet or in the old Islamic law books which says that organ donation is permissible. But there is nothing in the Quran or in the prophetic precedents or in the old Islamic law books which says that organ donation is impermissible. You can look in the Quran and in the Hadith until kingdom comes, but you will not find anything on organ donation for the very fact that organ donation is organ transplantation is a very new concept. The first successful heart transplant happened in 1965. Christian Bernard in South Africa did a heart transplant. The patient lived for 18 days, then he died. Yeah. You're saying that the fatwa by Mufti Jawad al-Haq was in 1979. In my research, I found that the first fatwa given on organ donation in Islam was in 1929 by Shaykh Abdurrahman al-Sa'di, a Saudi scholar, by the way. Saudi Arabia being very, very conservative, has actually got one of the best transplant centers in the Muslim world. So then how do we argue this from a Islamic perspective? Some people will say, well, because it's not in the Quran, either way, it's not a religious argument. Doctors and Muslims should do whatever they want. But others say that it encroaches on certain Islamic issues, such as what is life, what is death, how, can we mutilate the body, can we cut up the body, and therefore it becomes an Islamic issue. There are principles in the Quran and Sunnah which talks about, which we can apply to organ donation. I mean, if you were to find a fatwa or a position in the Quran whether you are allowed to follow traffic light laws, you can look for Kingdom Comes, you won't find it. But you will find sources where it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, protect yourself and others. Do not harm yourself and others in the Quran. That can very easily be applied to traffic laws. We all know what happens if you hit a red light, other than the fact that you might get 6 points, right? But whoever saves a life has saved all of humanity. What are we doing when we are doing organ transplantation? Do the doctors are the doctors kind of sadists, masculine, that just like to touch people's organs? But they're doing that anyway in the surgery, right? We have dignified the children of Adam, and dignity also can be translated as saving a life. These are technical issues. I'm not going to go into those. One of the major questions that I have found is that people say, "Oh, you are not allowed to do organ donation because your body does not belong to you. It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." Fine. But then by dint of the argument, you're not allowed to receive an organ as well, because that also belongs to Allah. So why are you receiving your organ? Point number one. Point number two is everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from an Islamic point of view. Our children belong to Allah. Our cars belong to Allah. Our house belong to Allah. Our wealth belong to Allah. So why is it that we only talk about that issue? Okay. There is also more theological arguments. There's a whole process. It's quite technical. I don't want to go into that. You would appreciate that this is not a simple issue from a medical perspective, but also from an Islamic perspective. It's a very, very technical and complicated. Mutilation and degradation. They say one of the reasons why you're not allowed is because doing surgery or cutting somebody up is mutilation. It's degrading that person. But how can something be degrading, right? When you are having surgery, how can that be degrading when you are trying to save your own self? So one of the things is changing of Allah's creation. Again, how are you changing Allah's creation? People trim their hair, they cut trim their mustache, they clip their nails. So we are always doing some sort of changing. Mutilation in the hadith, Dr. Sharif spoke about this. Breaking the bones of the dead is like breaking the bones of the living. Now, this hadith is always used, right, to say that organ donation is wrong. Now, this is the hadith, and I would like to say with full authority here that my PhD was actually on hadith, right? So I can actually talk to that. Breaking the bones of the dead is like breaking the bones of the living. First of all, if we look at the context in which the Prophet ﷺ said this, Sayyidah Aisha, there's a student of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha by the name of Amra binti Abdurrahman. Amra binti Abdurrahman says to her son, "Dear son, if I die, then please bury me in our private land and not in the public graveyard. Because I have heard Aisha, the wife of the Prophet is saying that breaking the bones of the living is like breaking the bones of the dead." And the context of that was that people were grave digging in order to take the shroud, the coffin, and sell that. And when they were stealing the shroud, they had to break the bones in order to get the shroud out. It is in that context the Prophet ﷺ says that breaking the bones of the dead is like breaking the bones. It's a criminal act. The Prophet ﷺ is talking about a criminal act, right? Because if we were to apply this hadith literally as it is, then somebody who's having something done to their lungs or their heart, and the doctors will have to break open the rib cage, that's not going to be permissible, because the way that you're not allowed to break the bones of the dead, similarly you're not allowed to break the bones of the living. You have to be consistent. Okay. Also, mutilation was done in war situation, and Dr. Ghazal mentioned about Hind when she killed the Prophet's uncle Hamza. She ate his heart. Hamza was dead. He wasn't feeling any pain. So why on earth was she eating his heart? Because the reason why she was eating his heart was because she wanted to cause harm and pain to the Prophet. So mutilating the dead was a way of causing harm and grief to the living, not to the dead because the dead person is dead. Right? None of this, this hadith is talking about criminal intent. None of this applies to organ donation, at least organ transplantation, the way that it happens in the UK. I can't talk for the rest of the world. The body feels pain after death. Right? This is common public theology. There is not a single Quran ayat or single hadith which actually talks about this. There is nothing in the Quran hadith. It's just in public perception, right, that my body will feel pain. Right? Your body's dead. How is it going to feel pain? My ruh will feel pain. There's nothing in the Quran hadith. That's all I can say. Resurrected in front of Allah organless, and Dr. Sharif spoke about this. Well, first of all, 1 month into the ground, people will become decomposed. Your body is going to be decomposed. So, is it that same organ that you're going to be resurrected? Doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have got the power to completely make you into flesh? Point number one. Point number two, I normally say to people that inshallah we're all going to Jannah, right? And in Jannah, right, what happens is we won't need our kidneys, right, in Jannah. So what's the problem? But more importantly, there's a very beautiful hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari where the Prophet ﷺ says there was a man who committed sins all throughout his life, and on his deathbed he said to his children, I am too embarrassed to go in front of Allah with all this shame and all this crime that I've committed. Burn my body and cremate it and scatter the ashes into the sea so that God cannot resurrect me and I don't need to face this embarrassment in front of God. Allah being the all-powerful resurrects him and asks him this question. This is the hadith of Sahih Bukhari. My servant, why did you do this? Why did you tell your children to cremate you and disperse your ashes into the water? He said, dear Allah, dear God, I am too embarrassed of my sins that I can't bear to stand in front of you. And you know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the hadith? He says, if you have so much love and respect for me, then I have forgiven you, go to Jannah. This is the hadith of Sahih. Here we have a person who completely cremated his body, forget any organs. Yeah? Interfaith, 5 minutes. If the recipient commits a crime, right, I mean, that's kind of a daft argument really, because if I sell, sorry? Car or money or knife and somebody else does something with it, then I'm not responsible for that. Interfaith organ transplantation, some people say we are not allowed to take from non-Muslims, some people say we are not allowed to give to non-Muslims, completely oblivious of the fact that how organ transplantation actually works. You can't have like a pick and mix approach, or I want a Hindu organ, or I want a Muslim organ. It doesn't work like that. Point number one. Point number two is that I delivered an academic paper in Edinburgh once, the British Academy of Islamic Studies, and my paper was on Islam and milk banks. And somebody asked this question: that are Muslim mothers allowed to take donated milk from non-Muslim donors? And I responded, I said, I don't know about the rest of the world, but at least in the UK, any milk which is donated, right, to the milk banks in the UK is pasteurized at 60 degrees for 30 minutes. If there was any kufr in that, it would have been boiled out. So, interfaith organ transplantation at rock bottom, every single person inside is a Muslim. What that basically means is the way that our heart functions, according to Muslim belief, functions in the way that Allah created it to function, and therefore it is submitting to the will of God. The way that our kidneys function is the way that Allah wanted it to. So again, this is quite a silly argument, really. I'm finished, right? I'm not going to go, I mean, we're all hungry, and I'm not going to go to the really appetizing discussion of cannibalism. I'll leave it there, and I'll take some more questions. Thank you very much.